makes it pretty clear why I chose this pickup for that guitar. So we're here in the repair department at Gryphon Stringed Instruments, and Brian Michael is going to be installing the LR Baggs Anthem SL into my cherished 1965 Martin D28. And it takes a real special pickup for me to want to put it into a guitar like this. The Anthem is a great sounding combination mic and undersaddle pickup, and the microphone sounds exceptionally good because it's mounted under the bridge on the guitar, and it's a very usable and workable design, so I'm really excited to hear what it's going to sound like in this guitar. So what I'm doing here is cleaning out the buffing compound that can get stuck inside the sound hole, and because that's where the controls are going to be mounted. So I'll just check it with a mirror, make sure it looks nice and clean, and it does. So now I'm going to do the same thing where the battery compartment will be stuck on the back of the guitar. So the first thing to do, as with most pickups, is to enlarge the end pin hole to 1/2 inch. So I'm going to remove the original tapered end pin with this pair of wire strippers with a little pad on it, which protects the guitar. And then I'm going to drill the end pin out with this step bit that you can get at any hardware store, which does a good job of making a smooth hole without minimal risk of tearing out, which is really important on any guitar, actually. Pull out the pin, I just work it back and forth this way, pop it out. There's the end pin. You can keep that for your souvenirs. Okay. And making sure to keep perpendicular to the end of the guitar, you're going to drill slowly into it. There we go. Alright, so this pickup constitutes an end pin jack with a built-in preamp, which that's what I just drilled the hole out for. And then we have the under the saddle transducer, which will only be picking up the bass frequencies from the guitar. And then we have this contact microphone that's going to go on the bridge plate, which picks up the mid-range and the treble, and basically the rest of the frequency spectrum. And then we have our little volume wheel here that will get mounted in the sound hole, kind of out of the way. So I'm going to start by putting all this in through the end pin. The first thing I'm going to do is remove a little material off the bottom of the saddle to accommodate for the thickness of the under saddle element, so that when we're done, the action will be the same on the guitar as when we started. So what I do is just take a little ruler and mark it with a pencil where I want to sand it to, and then I'll take it over to our power sander and remove that much material. And you said you wanted to go a little lower on the bass, right? Okay. Alright, so now that I've marked my line, I'm going to go sand it off. So the first thing I'm going to do is check and make sure the table is square with the sander, and it is. So my saddle stays flat. And then I have my pencil line I marked on here. So I'm just going to turn this on and sand it across and make sure it's flat afterwards.
If you even had that
I would. No, I wouldn't even.
Or even if you did have it,
I wouldn't want to use it. No.
You wouldn't, right?
No. I wouldn't.
Why'd they do that? Just because it was easy?
Early on.
Because this guitar has a relatively low saddle, we want to make sure there's plenty of break angle over the saddle from the strings. So I'm going to add some little string ramps on this bridge with a dremel tool. Normally on a vintage guitar, this is something you sometimes wouldn't do, but since the guitar has a replaced bridge, we're not too worried about it on this guitar. And they can always be filled in the future if the guitar ever has a neck reset. The steady hand of a pro. All right. That can also be done using a saw, which is a little less scary than using a dremel. Okay, next thing I will be doing is drilling
a hole through the saddle slot down into through the top of the guitar for the pickup element to come up through. And the worst thing that could happen is hitting a top brace with the drill. So I'm going to use some little magnets to check where the top braces are in relation to the saddle slot, by putting one on the inside, one on the outside. And so this magnet shows where the inside of the brace is. So I've got a good amount of, I've got a good distance there that I don't have to worry about hitting the brace, even when I angle the hole. And then this end we'll check. This end's a little bit closer, but I don't have to drill the hole all the way through on this side. It just has to get tucked into the end of the bridge. So I'm definitely going to come through the top on the bass side and then just tuck the tip of the element in on this end. We'll drill first the diagonal hole for the element to come up through. And you want it about a 45-degree angle to decrease how much this has to bend when it comes up through the saddle slot. Because if it gets bent at a sharp angle, it can cause problems with the signal. Just drill a tiny little relief hole into the side of the slot for the tip of this transducer to tuck into, which LR Baggs recommends doing. Not that far.
I'll just take a moment and add that none of these modifications are going to affect the sound of the guitar as an acoustic instrument. These are all things that are completely unobtrusive to the tone of the guitar.
This is just to break the edge where the transducer goes down into the hole, just to give it a little extra relief so it's not bending on a hard edge. Now we'll install the end pin preamp through the hole in the end block. Start connecting things. So the trick here is finding the right distance through the end block so that this strap button nut is flush with the end of the preamp and we're done. So you kind of have to do trial and error to see how far the nut has to be set on the preamp.
It's a pretty thick end block on this guitar.
Yeah, so we might actually have to move the cover out. So we're tightening this. Now we're put on our strap button nut, which is a nice bronze color, kind of matches everything. And then we're going to use this little tool that Frank made that clamps around the strap button to make sure it's on there nice and tight so it doesn't come off, loosen up. There we go. So there's our end pin jack. Okay, so we'll get the battery pouch, which velcros to this piece of Velcro with 3M sticky on it. Well, so I'll put the pad in the back of the guitar first, which I cleaned with acetone. That was one of the first things we did, just to make sure there's no oil or dirt, which would cause this to maybe come loose at some point. The next step is to put the under saddle transducer up through the saddle slot and get that installed. And then I'm going to look through the hole I drilled and try to find the tip of the element, which takes some practice, but once you do it a few times.
You've probably done it a few hundred times at this point.
Probably with the element, yeah. I don't think anthem, but there it is. Get it up through there, and there it is. So I'll have that. Then I'm going to take the end of the element, tuck it into that little pocket I drilled out, and then pull the rest down through so we make sure that it's going all the way across the saddle slot. And just to keep it seated for now, I like to put the saddle down in here and throw a little piece of tape over it. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is just mount this volume wheel, which is shaped specifically to fit right inside the sound hole here and miss the bracing. So, we'll pop that right there. And now all I have to do is secure all the wires and restring the guitar, and we should be good to go.
Okay, so the guitar is all back together and strung up and ready to go, and we're plugged into this amp, so you get an idea of what it sounds like installed. Before I turn the volume up on the guitar, here's what the guitar sounds like on its own acoustically. So now I'm going to turn up the volume on the guitar. I chose this pickup for that guitar and why this pickup has become such a favorite here at Gryphon. It very accurately represents the tone of the guitar as it sounds unplugged, but in an easy to use plugged in fashion. So as far as the balance on that, what do you think, Brian? You think we're in good shape on?
Yeah, and what we'll do just to demonstrate the two components of this pickup. So like I said before, the under saddle pickup, you're only hearing the bass out of the under saddle element. So because of that, you don't hear that quacky, annoying sound that a lot of people are familiar with from an under saddle pickup. And because you're hearing most of the sound actually from the mic, which LR Baggs has done a great job of figuring out how to build a mic that doesn't feedback easily. So what I'm going to do is remove the microphone from the signal with the little set screw in here, just so you can hear the frequency that the saddle element captures, and then I'll slowly roll in the mic a little bit at a time so you can hear the kind of flexibility you can get even with a streamlined version of the Anthem. So let's, are we down on the, okay. So just need a little number, I think it's a number 0 screwdriver, a 00 screwdriver. I'm going to roll the mic down to nothing. Make sure I put this in here. Okay, so now we have just the pickup element. I'll turn this up so we don't hear any guitar.
No guitar? Okay.
We don't hear any actual guitar.
Yeah, you hear a big difference with the quack under saddle sound. And
Yeah.
It's not a very natural kind of a tone on its own.
Yeah, so we're just hearing the low end, really. Besides what you're hearing acoustically from the guitar, the amp is just getting the low end. And now what we'll do is blend in the mic, and I might blend in a little bit more than I normally would, just so you can hear more of the characteristic of the mic coming through. So now we have the microphone adjusted back a little stronger than it was initially, but now we're going to hear a nice bright signal with the low end from the saddle transducer and a lot of mic in the mix.
Sounds good. Sounds very natural.
So if you wanted a slightly less bright sound, we could roll the mic off just a tad. Some people like this sound, nice and crisp, sounds like new strings on your guitar. But if you wanted a warmer tone, you could actually just roll the set screw back on the mic and kind of find what you like for a blend between the two.
And that's right in there, right next to the volume control.
As long as you got the screwdriver. And other than that, just a volume knob and a battery to change every 6 months or so, and then that's all there is to it.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Very,
Derek.
very happy with the sound.
Yeah, that's all, folks.